There are people who are living in families that are lonely because they're not on the same, not page, but pace.
Patience is choosing to move at the speed of another.
Good leaders in a family, they decide to go at the speed of love, not at the speed of their own heart. And love goes slow. There's a really old song that says you can't hurry love. Is that true? Welcome to the Lead Everyday Show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
And I'm Mark Miller.
And Mark, we are talking about living last, and I want us to go down this little rabbit hole here on our old "You Can't Hurry Love" song, and we're gonna give some thought to that.
That must be a really old song.
It's been around for a while.
I don't know that song.
You Can't Hurry Love. You never
No,
heard that?
probably have to
You probably need
go
to listen.
check that out. Okay.
Listen to some music there a little more, but. The question comes back to what we've been talking about the last couple of days, our fundamentals here of building a great home. And there's two. There's love first and live last. And live last, this mindset, people, just like we answered the first question, people were asking, how do you know if you're loving first? I said, do you live your life in such a way that people who know you the best love you the most? How do you know you're loving, or how do you know you're living last? How do you know you're living last? And I would say it's when everybody in your family's in front of you. It's pretty simple, but I think so many times we want to charge, we want to be out front. Leaders are listening. I mean, you're often setting the pace, and we would say you need to set the pace. People always watch the leader kind of mindset here. But when it comes to the speed that you travel in your family and what's going on, not everybody goes at the same pace. And I would state the obvious here for leaders who listen. A lot of times we have way more, activity going on in our mind and our, we're trying to make progress. And I don't know that everybody in our family is always thinking the same way. You may be an woman executive listening here, and your husband's not thinking the way you are, or you may be a guy who's managing something and your wife's not thinking the way you are. There's a good chance that you're married to somebody who's different than you. We hadn't even talked about that. I mean, there's, what's the old opposites do attract? I think sometimes we're going at the speed we're going, and if we're not aware and intentional of who's around us, I think we can miss. I think this is a big deal, and I would say that really good leaders in a family, they decide to go at the speed of love, not at the speed of their own heart. I mean, we got to. And love goes slow, if you ask me. You can't hurry it. I mean,
yeah.
Well, you got to listen to the song, but
I need to listen to the song. But you've encouraged me and challenged me, and tell me if I get this right. But I think you're the first one that I ever heard say, patience is choosing to move at the speed of another.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
that's really what you're talking about here.
To me, yeah. And
not asking them to move at your speed, but you choose to move at their speed.
And exactly. And I think sometimes we end up in a family, and this will happen to you. I mean, if you end up with a preschooler, you're going to slow down. I mean, you really are. You're going. It's just
you're patient.
If you're patient, yeah. Or if you try to hurry everybody everywhere though, and you're gonna end up alone. And I think about something you said. We're talking about, I think on a few episodes, maybe last season, we were talking about, the old, it's lonely at the top. And what's your thing? It's only lonely at the top
if you don't take anybody
with you. And I think there are people who are living in families that are lonely because they're not on the same, not page, but pace. I mean, I think there's a chance for us to calibrate here. And it goes all the way from, I can go for a walk with my wife, and it's just, I'm just going to walk at the speed I'm going to walk if I'm not thinking about this. And the next thing you know, she's 4 or 5 steps behind me, and her legs aren't as long as mine. And, it's pretty understandable, but we got to sync up there. And I think, and in the same way, she can be 4 or 5 steps behind me the whole way. And, maybe she needs to speed up and I need to slow down, or I need to slow down and she needs to speed up, or I need to speed up. She needs, whatever, you know what I'm trying to say here. I think sometimes we're not really even aware of how fast somebody else is going in their heart and their pace and all that stuff. We just know we've got something we're trying to do. And
even when we're trying to serve, because leaders have this tendency well, let me speak for myself. I want to solve things.
Well, you want to conquer stuff.
I
too.
want to solve things.
I
And
do.
so many times I've learned that my wife is not ready to solve it.
Right.
She wants to talk about it.
Right. And that's
So
great.
am I going to move at her pace
Right.
or am I going to try to get her on my pace?
You're right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. A relationship is not something you conquer, right? It's a relationship. And you know, man, I think this is a huge opportunity here for us to think about what it means to live last. And so I think when we lead at what I would call the speed of love, and I think love goes slow. It's just not, you don't, you know, people think you fall in love real quick. You don't, you grow into love, and it's just not an overnight deal. I've said before, families that last aren't built fast. They are built, but it takes time. I mean, it really does.
Same is true for teams.
It is true.
And
for
leaders
teams.
ought to know that.
That's exactly right. Yeah, leaders really should. And so some
Yeah,
of those
why would
same
you think-
principles that you
yeah.
couldn't bring home and say, let's build this. Let's
Right.
build a relationship.
And if it's slow
And
at
it's got to be
work, then why would you expect it to be fast at home?
Yeah. I think some of the things that sort of takes me off on a little tangent here, but some of the things we talk about at work are knowing somebody's story will help those relationships grow. I think sometimes we live with somebody and we think we know their story. We really don't, unless we're talking to them and having conversation. Go back to listening, like we talked about yesterday. And I've said for a while that proximity is not the same thing as intimacy. You can be in a relationship with somebody and not have intimacy there. And I'm not talking about sexual intimacy. I'm talking about, you know, are you connected? And I mean, you can sleep in the same bed and not really be connected to somebody unless you pay attention to them and talk to them. And this goes both ways. It's not just your responsibility, but as a leader, you know, if you're thinking about it this way, you set the pace for this. This is, you get to decide, am I going to slow down and go at their pace, or am I going to speed up and get at their pace? Like whatever you need to do, probably need to make
And it's
some
probably
adjustments.
different for different people in
Different
your
for
family.
at different times.
At different times.
In different situations, my wife's going faster than I am in something, and there's different times where I'm going faster. And so it's,
Yeah. So it feels like in this one, there's the awareness piece and the intentionality, right?
Yeah.
Once you're aware, you then have to make a choice.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Like I'm ahead of my wife. Am I going to slow down? You
Yeah.
got to be aware of it. And
Yeah.
then you get to make a choice.
for sure. Okay, so here's the takeaway today. Let's land with the question, like, how do I know if I'm living last, if the people in your relationships, your family, are in front of you? That's my little line there. But if you want to get serious about this, I challenge you today to take a walk with your spouse or one of your kids and have an intentional conversation. Practice going the same speed that they go. If they're a toddler, you're going to go really slow. If they're a high school kid, you might be trying to keep up. I mean, but go at the same pace, and then have a conversation during your walk and say, are there places where we're not on the same pace? Have that conversation and remember yesterday, let's practice listening and see what they say and see if there's some things, rather than responding defensively, if they're pointing out something maybe I need to hear, I have a chance to respond to this and really hopefully change my pace a little bit.
Respond with your actions.
Respond with my actions and see if we can't get on the same pace. Not the same page, same pace. You get on the same pace, you got a much better chance of being on the same page, I think. So let's work on that today. All right, remember, the best leaders lead every day.